All right, you are now live.
Good evening. Welcome to the Maryland Attorney General's COVID-19 Access to Justice Task Force's virtual community forum on Guide to Unemployment Insurance Benefits in Maryland. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce the Attorney General, our Attorney General, Brian Frosch. Mr. Attorney General, take it away.
Thanks very much, Paul. I want to thank Paul Cucuzzella and Mina Agarwal. They will be the presenters tonight, and I think you'll find their presentations to be excellent. I also want to say thank you very much to Rena Shaw. Rena is one of the vice chairs of the task force and a partner in our effort with the Maryland Access to Justice Commission. The task force has hosted a series of these forums on important topics, topics like eviction prevention and consumer debt and life and estate planning. It's our hope that tonight will provide you with important information on unemployment benefits. Thousands of Marylanders have struggled without a paycheck for a number of months due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And obtaining unemployment assistance from our Department of Labor has not been as smooth as it should have been, but it's critical to those folks who need to pay the rent, pay the mortgage, put food on the table. And understanding the process to obtain unemployment benefits, navigating the process, has been and continues to be difficult for many Marylanders. Tonight's speakers will discuss a range of topics, including the many resources available for this assistance and how to apply for it, how to appeal if you are denied benefits. So thanks to Paul, thanks to Mina for leading tonight's discussion. You can always look for videos that we have done for previous forums and for this one to be on our website at MarylandAttorneyGeneral.gov. That's MarylandAttorneyGeneral, all one word, .gov. Thank you to all of the members of the task force for the incredible amount of time and effort they have dedicated to these issues over the past several months. And I look forward to Paul and Mina's presentations this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney General. As Attorney General Frost said, my name is Paul Cucuzzella. I'm with the Attorney General's office. I'm joined tonight by Mina Agarwal, who is with the Department of Labor in their Unemployment Insurance Division. Also joined with us tonight as our moderator is David Merkin, also with the Attorney General's office. As the Attorney General said, this forum is meant to inform unemployment insurance applicants and potential applicants on basically soup to nuts, the application process, eligibility, benefits, appeal process, and resources available to you as citizens of Maryland. Mina will kick off the presentation and I will follow after her. So I'll turn it, actually, one other thing. If you want to follow along with the presentation in a bit more detail, you can go to the People's Law Library at www.peoples-law.org, and under Government Benefits Services and then Unemployment Programs, you'll see 4 different tabs that step through basically everything we're going to talk about here tonight. So that's www.peoples-law.org, Government Benefits and Services, Unemployment Insurance Program. Thank you. Mina?
Thank you, Paul, and thank you to Attorney General Frosch for that great introduction. And Attorney General Frosch, thank you again for putting together this task force and really spearheading, Maryland, the state's effort to highlight the issues and help folks out during this hard time. The task force recognizes that it's been a very difficult time for citizens of Maryland, and we are just glad to be able to help out in any way that we can. So thank you again. And so I think, as Paul mentioned and Attorney General Frosch mentioned, our presentation tonight is about unemployment insurance benefits. We hope to provide, go through the application process from A to Z. So for unemployment insurance. So basically what that means is, we'll walk you through the different types of programs that the Unemployment Insurance Division is administering at this time. We'll walk you through the required documents that you may need to apply for unemployment insurance, the application process, and then what you can do in the event that you are denied unemployment insurance benefits. But before we kind of get started with, the documents that you're going to need to apply for unemployment insurance benefits, I really just wanted to highlight that, generally speaking, under normal times, so, before the pandemic hit, the Division of Unemployment Insurance really was only administering one program, and that was a standard regular unemployment insurance benefits program. But in the event of the pandemic, Congress passed what's called the CARES Act, and basically, is having unemployment insurance benefit, the Division of Unemployment Insurance, administer additional programs under the CARES Act. So again, prior to the pandemic, generally speaking, the division only administered regular unemployment insurance benefits. So that means that employees that generally, were classified as employees. So what that means is that folks who received a W-2 tax form would generally qualify for unemployment insurance benefits if certain criteria were met. Under the CARES Act, though, during the pandemic, Congress recognized that, large swaths of populations across the country, were working and who were ultimately unemployed, but who may not have been standard employees or W-2 employees. So Congress went ahead and passed programs under the CARES Act to address the need for benefits for these folks that were unemployed but who may not be W-2 employees. So that includes, individuals who are classified as independent contractors who may not be monetarily eligible for benefits under the regular unemployment insurance program, folks who may be self-employed as well, or those seeking part-time employment, or individuals lacking sufficient work history. So all of those folks are generally who may be eligible under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program under the CARES Act. So I did want to make that distinction before going forward. Yeah, so part one is going to deal with documents and information needed to apply for unemployment insurance benefits. Yeah, and so information that everyone will need for the application for unemployment insurance benefits is personal information. So that generally includes, the standard information. So your name, phone number, street address, email address if you have one, social security number. You'll also need to provide your employment history for the past 18 months. And you'll also need to supply proof of income. And the type of proof of income that you have to supply will really depend on the type of employment you have. So again, if you're a standard W-2 employee versus a worker who's an independent contractor or someone who is self-employed. So if you may need the following documents to apply for unemployment insurance benefits. So if you are self-employed, you may need to upload one of the following documents. So that includes anything from the IRS Form 1099. So that could also work for folks that are classified as independent contractors as well. A Schedule C tax return, a summary of your quarterly payments, an accounts receivable statement, an income tax K-1 schedule, profit and loss statement, or other business formation papers. So such as, a business registration or charter or an FEIN number, et cetera. And then also, if you were in the military, you may need to provide a DD 214 member 4 form, or if you are employed by the federal government, you may need to supply the SF-8 form. And if I could just kind of identify the types of businesses that qualify as self-employment in the state of Maryland. So you have sole proprietorships. So that would generally be owners who file a Schedule C with their income tax return. You also have the S corporation. You also have a partnership, and then you also have some LLCs who may elect to file as S corporations, or one-member LLCs as well as sole proprietorships. Yeah, so for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, to qualify for that program, you have to be unemployed or / unable to work because of COVID-19. So for that, claimants will be required to self-certify on the unemployment insurance application that they're, again, unable to work due to COVID-19. So some examples include, the individual has been diagnosed with COVID-19 or is experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 and is seeking a medical diagnosis. So, they're going to get tested or they've been tested and they're awaiting results. A member of the individual's household has been diagnosed with COVID-19. So again, if you live with someone that's been diagnosed with COVID-19 and you may or may not have it, you still need to, quarantine to make sure you're not infected, and that could qualify as well. The individual's providing care for a family member or a member of the individual's household who has been diagnosed with COVID-19, or a child or other person in the household for which the individual has primary caregiving responsibility is unable to attend school or another facility that is closed as a direct result of the COVID-19 public health emergency. And such school or facility care is required for the individual to work. So in that example, that would be something, if you have a child that usually goes to daycare, but that daycare is closed and the child is now at home and you are unable to work because you have to take care of that child, that would qualify as an example of someone who is unable to work because of COVID-19. There is a more extensive list. However, there are several other qualifications that could help you qualify as unable to work due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And you can find that complete list on the unemployment insurance website under the frequently asked questions for claimants. It'll be, in the top half of the page, the first or second question. Yeah, so the next part really deals with eligibility for unemployment insurance benefits. And so if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, Bill. Yeah, so generally speaking, there is a 3-part test for eligibility, just because, again, you could potentially qualify for unemployment insurance benefits. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will. Unemployment insurance is really a partnership with the federal government, and the federal government has outlined, several qualifications that must be met for a worker or someone who's been unemployed to really qualify for unemployment insurance benefits. So generally speaking, those three, the 3-part test for eligibility includes no-fault unemployment. So you have to have been separated from employment through no fault of your own. And you have to have worked and earned sufficient wages during the look-back period, which is generally speaking the past 5 quarters. So for instance, if I became unemployed today, so today being, the 4th quarter of 2020, I would have to look back 5 quarters. So that would basically mean 3rd quarter of 2020, 2nd quarter of 2020, 1st quarter of 2020, 4th quarter of 2019, and the 3rd quarter of 2019. I would have to have a sufficient amount of wages, basically beginning the 3rd quarter of 2018 through 3rd quarter of 2019, through the third quarter of 2020. And also, you generally have to be able and available to work. However, during the pandemic, we have relaxed that requirement and are not requiring folks to look for work at this time to fulfill that requirement. Yeah, and not only do you have to qualify for unemployment insurance benefits, you have to maintain that qualification, that eligibility once you start collecting benefits. So what that means is, once you initially apply, you have to keep applying weekly. It's what's called the weekly certification process. So you'll be able to go into your claimant portal and certify every week, that you aren't working, or in the event that you have worked that one week, you will have to then fill out, what type of job you worked for that week and how much you were paid. And depending on how much you were paid, you may still be eligible for unemployment insurance benefits for that week. However, the amount of benefits you are eligible for will be reduced by the amount that you were paid for that week. Again, so the third, you have to keep filing that weekly certification. And if for whatever reason you get a job offer, which is great, but you don't accept that job offer, that could ultimately jeopardize your unemployment insurance benefits as well. Because ultimately, the hope of the program is that folks will go get back to work and stop collecting unemployment insurance benefits. So again, if you get a job offer and you don't accept it, that could jeopardize your unemployment insurance benefits, depending on the type of job you get versus the type of job you were performing prior to being separated from employment. So prior to being laid off. Yeah, and so again, this slide just kind of goes over the COVID-19 pandemic unemployment assistance program. So again, this program was enacted under the Federal CARES Act by Congress. The eligibility period, this is, kind of what we're grappling with right now. So the eligibility period for the program was from January 27th, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. So that December 31st deadline is coming up, in the next 2 months now. It's almost November, right? So we are really at the mercy of Congress, and that, we are hopeful that the pandemic unemployment assistance program will be extended into next year, but we are waiting for congressional action for the program to be extended. So, it looks like as of now, the Senate, at least, the United States Senate is on recess until November 14th or so. So, we are hopeful that another stimulus package will be passed, but as of now, nothing has been done. So again, this pandemic unemployment assistance program is ending December 31st, 2020. And it can be claimed retroactively. And again, to be eligible, the able and available to work, that, we've relaxed that guideline, but also the key here being that you have to be unemployed or underemployed due to a COVID-19 reason. And again, a complete list of those reasons can be found on the unemployment insurance website for the state of Maryland. Yeah, so the third part now, we just want to go over the unemployment insurance application process and what that fully entails. So the first step would be to create an online Beacon account. And the division, we were really lucky in the sense that, we were able to get our application online in mid-April. And that application was really a one-stop application for both regular unemployment insurance and for benefits under the new federal programs created under the CARES Act. So, generally speaking, claimants only have to fill out one application, and then the division works to figure out whether you qualify for regular unemployment insurance or benefits under one of those federal programs under the CARES Act. And recently, the division, we were operating under the system that went live in April. It was kind of like a preview of the bigger system that eventually came out on September 20th. So we are fully functional and fully live with our new Beacon 2.0 new IT system. And, here's the website for that new system. And again, it, kind of streamlines the application process, and it created this claimant portal, which allows claimants to go into their account and see exactly what is happening, when they receive payment, and all of that good stuff, or why they were denied benefits, et cetera. And claimants can also go in and file their appeal through that portal if for whatever reason they were denied benefits. Yeah, so step 2, you complete your account registration. So again, this is just generally basically, the general questions that we have to ask. So again, demographic information. So that includes, the standard first name, last name, phone number, street address, social security number, and email address if you have one. And then screening questions regarding recent employment. So that generally is questions relating to your most recent employer. So for instance, your start date and end date for employment for your most recent employer, the amount of wages you're receiving for your most recent employer, the reason you were separated, and questions regarding, whether or not you voluntarily quit your employment. If you voluntarily quit your employment, that voluntary quit has to have been for a good cause or valid circumstance to qualify for unemployment insurance benefits. It couldn't just be because, I no longer felt like working there, so I quit. Again, it has to be for a good cause or valid circumstance. And then also, this is where you're going to have to self-certify and answer questions regarding, why you left employment, and to make sure that, again, you left employment due to a COVID-19 reason. So step 3, so this is the step where you have to select benefit payment method and your tax withholdings. So generally speaking, most folks receive UI benefits via either a debit card, which is issued by Bank of America, or via a paper check. And generally speaking, again, the majority of folks receive their benefits through a debit card. And we have a small percentage of claimants that receive their benefits through a check. So for the debit cards, really it's an interesting process. So if you have not qualified for UI benefits within the past 3 years, you will be sent a brand new debit card, and that debit card will have your funds on it for that first week. And then after you receive the debit card for the first week, you will go ahead, and then for the following weeks that you qualify for unemployment insurance benefits, you will then automatically receive your benefits onto that debit card weekly. You won't have to wait for a new debit card. Again, the benefits will just automatically load onto that debit card. So when you first qualify for benefits, you will have to wait 7 to 10 business days to receive that debit card from Bank of America. But again, after you receive that debit card, should you qualify for benefits the following weeks, the amount of benefits that you receive should be a seamless transaction. You should receive it, depending on when you file your weekly certification, you should receive it, by 10 a.m. The following day or the next day after that. So again, the process is pretty seamless. You'll have to complete a disclosure agreement, and then you'll have to also, fill out and opt for, whether or not you want your state and federal income taxes to be deducted from your UI benefit payment. Generally speaking, UI is taxable income. So you can either have it taxed up front, or you can have it taxed, the following year when you file your taxes by April 15th every year. But I mean, just to be absolutely clear, you will have to pay tax on these UI benefits. It's just a matter of when. So either, again, you can opt for the taxes to be deducted initially, or they'll be deducted when you file taxes by April 15th the following year. Yeah, and so step 4, provide certain work information. So this is where you would fill out, if you were a union member, you would fill out, the hiring call number and all of that information. Your occupation, this is where you fill in, what you did, what your general occupation is. And then also this is where you fill out your employment start and end dates during the past 18 months. And reasons for separation for each of those employers. So this is what I was talking about when I said that, you have to enter in the amount of wages earned from the third quarter of 2019 through the third quarter of 2020. So again, we generally look at the employment for the last 5 quarters. And not only do you have to be monetarily eligible, we also look at, why you separated from employment from those employers as well. And this step in the application really provides us the information that we need to not only determine monetary eligibility, but also determine non-monetary eligibility as well. Step 5, and then you have to answer eligibility questions going forward. And so I apologize for that. So some of the eligibility questions, again, really concentrate around, why you were separated from employment over the past 18 months, as the previous slide described. To qualify for unemployment insurance benefits, you have to have separated from employment through no fault of your own. So we have to go through and determine and to make sure really that the claimants that are applying for benefits really did separate from employment through no fault of their own. So really we look at things, such as voluntary quit. As I stated before, you can't have just quit your employment because you felt like it. You had to have had good cause or valid circumstances. And then we also look at, what if you were let go, if you were fired, what prompted that? If that was prompted by the claimant's, bad behavior, so that would qualify as misconduct, gross misconduct, or aggravated misconduct. And depending on the level of misconduct, that has an effect that impacts your benefits, the amount of benefits you receive. So, again, we look at, if you were fired, why you were fired. If the employer just randomly fired you, you would generally qualify for benefits. And that's generally like the COVID-19 reasoning, throughout the pandemic as of now. A lot of folks are getting furloughed and things like that. So that would qualify as, a non-monetary determination. And we would, again, if you were laid off or furloughed due to COVID, that would count as a non-monetary eligibility. So you would qualify for that. And then again, we look at monetary consideration as well. And so that, that includes, again, we make sure that you receive enough payment to qualify for unemployment insurance benefits. So there is, I don't want to say a formula, but there is criteria that the division looks at. And really, you have to, for instance, you had to have made at least basically around $1,100 for that first quarter. And then the following 2 quarters, you had to have made around like $1,800 for those 2 quarters combined. So there is, a monetary floor that you do have to meet. And so with that, if you don't meet that, you wouldn't necessarily qualify for regular unemployment insurance benefits. But at that point, your application would then be considered for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program under the CARES Act. So then you could potentially qualify for benefits under that program as well. But again, just to be clear, that program currently is ending on December 31st. And we hope that that program does get extended. So Paul, I believe you're up.
Now that I've unmuted myself. Thanks a lot, Mina. Good information all. Okay, so Mina just described, eligibility for benefits, how to apply for benefits, and what the Division of Unemployment Insurance does with your application, what considerations it gives to it, and ultimately you receive a determinations letter determining whether or not you receive benefits, and if you do, what those benefits are. And you'll receive that determination letter. We'll post in your Beacon portal, so you'll know whether you've qualified for benefits. If you've been denied benefits, you have the ability to appeal that denial of benefits. And there are 3 levels of appeal of benefits. The first is to what is known as the Department of Labor's Lower Appeals Division, where a hearing examiner, a single hearing examiner, hears the appeal internally. The second level is to an independent board of appeals within the Department of Labor. And then the third level of appeal is actually judicial review in Maryland Circuit Court. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step through each of those levels of appeal and tell you how you would go about doing it. We can go to the next slide. So as I said, the first level of appeal is to the Department of Labor's Lower Appeals Division, and where a claim of an appeal is heard before a hearing examiner. The content of the appeal, what you do to file the appeal, is the appeal must be in writing. It must be submitted by the claimant, or it can be submitted by a claimant's representative, such as an attorney or an advocate. The letter will include your name, the claimant's name, last 4 digits of Social Security number, the date of the benefits determination letter. In other words, the date of the benefits denial, and then finally a brief statement as to why you think that your benefits were denied incorrectly. And finally, the letter must be signed. You have to file your appeal not later than 15 days from the date of the benefits determination letter. So that's when the clock starts ticking. The date of that letter, the date the letter that states that you've been denied benefits starts clicking. The clock starts clicking on that date. 15 days from that date is when you have to file your appeal. And the appeal is considered filed when it's either delivered in person, if it's mailed, the date of the postmark, or if it's faxed or emailed, the date of the fax or the email. So how do you file? Where do you file? You can file through the Beacon portal system, which if you have online access is obviously that would probably be the easiest. You just upload your letter into the portal. If by mail, you will mail it to the Appeals Division, which is at 1100 North Utah Street, room 505 in Baltimore, 21201. And again, for all these details like this, the full version of this is available on the People's Law Library site, and there'll be links to that at the end of the presentation. And there's a fax number, 410-767-2421. And then there's also an email address that's listed in that presentation. So once you've filed your appeal, what happens next? So the first thing that'll happen is that the appeal will be scheduled before before a hearing examiner. You'll be given written notice of a hearing date, and that date will be at least 7 days from the date of a notice. You can then file for, if the date is not convenient for you, if you've got a conflict, you can file to have the date postponed, and by sending a notice asking for an extension within 3 days of the scheduled hearing date. So 3 days beforehand. And ordinarily, a request for postponement will be granted if it's for good cause, and that would be any sort of life circumstance that you have a conflict with. Whether it be work or family situation, medical reasons, any number of good reasons where your hearing will be postponed. And then the notice that you get scheduling the hearing will have specific instructions on how to request a postponement. So the hearing is a public hearing. It's open to the public. It's recorded. Participants at the hearing includes you as the claimant. The employer, your former employer, can appear as a participant, and oftentimes that occurs if the employer contests that it's like a no fault termination. And finally, the hearing examiner will be a participant. The hearing will include testimony. You call witnesses. You can provide your own testimony. You can provide documentation that supports your claim. And the hearing examiner will consider all of that, as well as any witnesses or testimony or evidence that the employer brings. And finally, the hearing examiner, after the hearing examiner hears all the evidence, will consider all the evidence in the testimony, and then will issue a written decision on the appeal that either affirms, modifies, or reverses the original benefits determination. And that decision will include a written recitation of the factual matters that the hearing examiner relied upon, as well as any application of the law relevant to unemployment insurance. There's no necessarily time frame within which the hearing examiner will issue a written opinion on an appeal or a written decision on appeal, but they try to get them done. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So if you're dissatisfied with the decision of the hearing examiner at the lower appeals division, you then have a right to appeal that decision to the Department of Labor's Independent Board of Appeals. You can only get to the Board of Appeals if you first had your appeal heard by the claims examiner, by the hearing examiner. So the process here is very similar to the process for applying, for appealing the original determination. It can be done on the beacon system. It must be in writing. It must be submitted by you as the claimant or a representative, again, attorney or an advocate. It must include your name, social security number. The lower appeals division appeal number should be on the appeal. A telephone number, and again, a brief statement as to why you disagree with hearing examiner's decision, and must be signed. Once again, it's a 15-day appeal time frame. So within 15 days of the hearing examiner's decision on the first level of appeal, you must file your written appeal with the Board of Appeals. And again, it can be delivered in person, by mail, by fax or email, or through the Beacon portal system. So the Board of Appeals doesn't necessarily hold a hearing on an appeal. If the hearing examiner's decision affirms the original decision, then the board generally will not hold a hearing. If the hearing examiner's decision differed in some way with the original determination, then the board is more likely to hold a hearing. If a hearing is necessary, and if the Board of Appeals determines its discretion to determine whether a hearing is necessary, the Board of Appeals will schedule the hearing, will give written notice of the date of the hearing at least 15 days before the date of the hearing. And again, there's an opportunity to postpone that hearing date for good cause. And the hearing notice will provide those instructions on how to postpone a hearing. So if the Board of Appeals does hold a hearing, the hearing is again open to the public. It's recorded. It includes the same participants, you as the claimant or your the claimant's representative. The former employer, again, is permitted to participate at the Board of Appeals, and the employer can be represented by an attorney at that time. And the Board of Appeals participates, obviously, and there are three members of the Board of Appeals that sits on all appeals. How the hearing is conducted is at the board's discretion. The board, it's its discretion as to whether or not to question witnesses, to introduce additional documents or evidence, or to permit the parties to make argument. But generally, if there's good reason to question witnesses and to produce to have additional evidence introduced, the Board of Appeals will accept that evidence. After the hearing, again, the Board of Appeals will vote, and they will reach a decision to either affirm, modify, or reverse the decision of the hearing examiner. And once again, a written decision will be issued and mailed to all parties. And again, there's no precise time frame within which the decision has to be issued, but they try to do it as quickly as possible. Next slide. So finally, if you are dissatisfied with the decision of the Board of Appeals, or if the employer is dissatisfied with the decision of the Board of Appeals, the decision can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Maryland, where it's actually subject to judicial review. What we'll tell you about this is limited to informing that a appeal to the Circuit Court has to be filed within 30 days of the decision of the Board of Appeals. And the Board of Appeals written decision will have an explanation as to those rights and those procedures as to how to file with the Circuit Court. Beyond that, if you end up in Circuit Court, it's probably best at this time to have professional help, to have an attorney, an advocate who's shepherding you through the process of having your case heard for the Circuit Court. Next. So that summarizes the appeal procedures for unemployment insurance benefit claims. The last thing we want to talk about quickly is resources that are out there to assist you as citizens of Maryland, to help you with understanding your rights, understanding your benefits, understanding how to apply, assistance in applying, assistance in appealing. So the first stop is to have questions answered is with the Department of Labor, the Division of Unemployment Insurance, on the Department of Labor's website, which is www.dllr.state.md.us. There are a number of good resources, including 2 specific published guidance documents. One is Maryland Unemployment Insurance Claim Guide. And then the second is a guide specific to a lot of what Mina was talking about with respect to the COVID-19 crisis. That document's called COVID-19 Health Crisis Financial Relief Guide for Marylanders. These guides are available on the Department of Labor's website. Also, obviously on the website is the portal to the Beacon system. And there are a number of, when you get into the Beacon portal, there are a number of video tutorials that help you step through the Beacon application process. Maryland Legal Aid. Maryland Legal Aid is a pro bono legal services organization for those who qualify for need-based or other circumstances, who qualify for pro bono legal assistance. Maryland Legal Aid's website is www.mdlab.org. On that website, there is actually an online intake form where they screen individuals for whether they're eligible for pro bono legal services. And Maryland Legal Aid has a number of regional offices across the state. If you go to their website, you can identify the regional office closest to you. You can have your first contact either through that online intake form or by directly calling your local office. And they have a number of tutorials on their website as well that help you with resources such as unemployment insurance benefits. The Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Services, MVLS, their website is www.mvlslaw.org. Their mission is a little bit different from legal aid. Their mission is to connect low-income Marylanders with volunteer lawyers and community partners in delivering free legal services. So they're a resource to connect people, to connect those in need with those willing to help those in need. Best place to go for them, again, is their website. They also have an 800 number, which is 1-800-510-0050. And they have portals on their websites for Get a Lawyer, for Get Advice, and for Get Additional Information. A lot of resources on the Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Services website. The next organization is Disability Rights Maryland. They specifically cater to those with certain disabilities. To learn more about this organization, their phone number is 1-800-233-7201, and their website is disabilityrightsmd.org. That's disabilityrightsmd.org. I've already talked a little bit about the People's Law Library. This is a self-help site. It's a one-stop self-help center for legal resources and contacts. A lot of information, as the name connotes, it's a library, a lot of resources on there available to the public that touch on all kinds of different topics, including public benefits and unemployment insurance. And as I said before, this presentation in much more detail than you're looking at in terms of these slides is available on the People's Law Library website, www.peoples-law.org. You go to the Government Benefits and Services tab, and then click on unemployment programs, and this presentation will pop up. United Way of Central Maryland is also a terrific resource for help in all kinds of situations. Their website is UWCM, United Way of Central Maryland, UWCM.org. They have a 211 number, super easy to call, 211, and they also have a live chat feature on their website. And finally, if you go to the presentation on the People's Law Library site, you'll see a listing of various county bar associations across the state, which to varying degrees provide assistance to low-income residents. They can link you up with advocates and pro bono legal services, free legal services in your communities. Next. Next slide. Okay, here are those links I was talking about. This presentation is divided on this website is divided into 4 parts in great detail that pretty much repeats much of what Mina and I have said here this evening. So if you want to take a second look, there it is. Next slide. Okay, so that concludes the formal portion of our presentation for the evening. We have received, I think we've received some comments in the chat. Prior to this presentation this evening, there were some people from the public that emailed with some specific questions about their specific claims, pending unemployment insurance claims, or problems they're having with their benefits claims. Mina will talk about this in a second, but those emails, those messages have been forwarded on in the Department of Labor, each of them for action. And Mina, I'll let you describe that or discuss that more.
Yeah, so I know that several of you had reached out to the commission's to the commission via the commission's email address, and I've been receiving those emails and I've been looking through them. And I've been working with my counterparts at the Division of Unemployment Insurance to work through those issues, work through those claims. And, hopefully we will have folks reach out or, review each claimant's case, case by case, and reach out, sometime by the end of next week or so.
Mina, while there is a specific component to it, there is a question. A question from Ms. Mingo about the fact that she lost her employment due to having several virtual learners and having to take care of that at home. Is there any specific guidance or anything else about that?
Yeah, so I don't want to give a determination one way or the other, but just the analysis that we would look at, under both the regular unemployment insurance program and then the pandemic unemployment assistance program. So if Ms. Mango was on regular unemployment insurance and, I'm sorry. So if she couldn't work because of this COVID-19 reason of having to supervise her kids, distance learning, and so she became unemployed due to that, we would look at whether or not she qualified for regular unemployment insurance. And if she didn't, she could potentially qualify for the pandemic unemployment assistance program. So benefits under the PUA program and the federal law. So, there are several other determinations that kind of go into whether or not Ms. Mango would qualify for unemployment insurance benefits. But, generally speaking, under the pandemic unemployment assistance program, Ms. Mango could potentially qualify because she has become unemployed due to a COVID-19 reason.
There was another question that we received in regards to a general question about what happens if the employer's response is a personal type attack that to try and avoid paying benefits, such as the employee is unpleasant or things like that. How is that dealt with with the unemployment division?
Right, of course. So again, we at the Division of Unemployment Insurance, we look at each claim on a case-by-case basis. So without knowing additional information regarding, the claim that you're referring to, if we do receive what's called, a separation notice from employers, we, based on whatever the employer provides us, we could, have to schedule an adjudication between the employer and the claimant to kind of clear up the situation, to gather additional facts regarding the reason for a separation. And, once we do that, the Division of Unemployment Insurance would then make a determination as to whether or not the claimant qualified for benefits. And of course, as Paul mentioned, if the claimant if for whatever reason the claimant did not qualify for benefits, the claimant does have the right to appeal that decision.
I received also several comments in the chat about unable to reach the virtual receptionist with the unemployment benefits section. Is there any alternatives for them if people are trying to reach out to the section?
Yeah, so we recognize that this is that this is a high stress situation for people right now because they can't, they may not be able to get through to the division. We're actively working to solve this problem, and we are hiring additional people to help out on the phones, to answer questions and take claims, et cetera. But, I would suggest, keep trying. Also, I don't want to create a flood of emails, but again, the email to the task force is, another option, and, those emails would get forwarded to me. So then I would be able to work my way through them.
Okay. Mina and Paul, that's generally all the general questions that I believe we've received either through the task force or this evening.
Great. Okay. Well, I think with that, David, thanks a lot. Mina, thank you very much for all the terrific information. Thanks to Attorney General Frosch for being on this community forum this evening and lending his considerable support and emphasis behind this initiative. Thank you all. Everybody have a good and safe evening.
Thank you.
Okay.